Everyone, tonight history has been made in America in an unprecedented rematch. Former President Donald Trump clinched the winning trophy to return as the 47th President of the U.S. Donald Trump, who is also the 45th President of the United States, won both the popular as well as secured enough electoral college votes to win incumbent Vice President and Democratic Party candidate Kamala Harris. But what does a Trump presidency mean for Africa in terms of immigration, economy, security, education, technology, and even the fight against terrorism? Tonight, I'm being joined by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Protocol. He's also a foreign policy analyst, Ademola Oshodi, who joins me virtually from the UK, and the former Deputy Director, CBN, Abdullahi Bello Abdullahi, who joins me from Abuja studios. Good evening to you, gentlemen. Welcome to Politics Tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Oshodi. Good evening to you. Can you hear me?
Good evening. I'm good. Good evening.
So let me start with Mr. Abdullahi. Ahead of this election, pundits continue to make a significant point, and that is that Africa must seize this moment in U.S. elections to shape a future based on autonomy and sustainable growth. To what extent would you say this played out?
Hello, Jumoke.
Can you hear me, Mr. Abdullahi? Good evening to you. That question was for you.
Okay. The opinion polls all this while before the election showed that the presidential election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris was very close. But considering the result at our hand now, it has been a blowout because the Republicans have been able to win the White House, win the Senate, as well as the House of Representatives. So what it means is that the levers of power, the entire levers of political power, have been handed to the Republicans. Now, what does it mean for Africa? Now, you know that Nigeria is the second largest trading partner of the U.S. in Africa. There is ExxonMobil, there is also Chevron, operating in our oil industry. You also know that Donald Trump has threatened to impose tariffs on foreign goods entering the United States of America. So we really don't know, but it will have adverse effect on our country, because if you impose tariffs on foreign goods entering the United States, that may change the dynamics, if you like, of international trade. And this may have negative consequences, on us. Don't forget also that there have been long-standing strategic cooperation between the U.S. and some African countries in terms of military assistance, like you said, like you mentioned, in terms of security cooperation and financial assistance and even humanitarian assistance. Now, you know also that Elon Musk is one of the leading supporters of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump has actually, hinted at forming a commission that he will hand over to Elon Musk. And what is the commission going to do? According to them, the commission is going to cut west. What it simply means is that a lot of money leaving the U.S. to Africa or Nigeria or, in fact, any African country in terms of security assistance or financial assistance or humanitarian assistance will no longer come in. It will rather be kept, back in the United States of America. You also are aware of...
All right. In a few minutes, we're going to compartmentalize this conversation. But let me bring in Ademola Oshodi. What does U.S. election mean for Africa? A path to prosperity or dependence, especially now that Donald Trump has won?
Thank you. It varies. Nigeria in particular and Africa in general are not the top priority for Donald Trump, even the Americans. I think we only are gauged based on security concerns, issues of the Islamic militants or the around the Sahel that threaten Western interests. They don't want a place whereby there's another Al Qaeda sleeping and emerging later on to attack Western interests, particularly American interests. There's also Africa is needed for also to provide peacekeeping for crises within the continent, Rwanda, Nigeria, and the rest of that. Africa is also a place for trade for commodities, from Nigeria, all crude oil, minerals from the Congo, South Africa. But we're not a top priority apart from security concerns. Now, Trump coming in with his American First policy will focus a lot on security and economic interests that will buffer, that will go against the Chinese or even Chinese economic intervention in Africa, and also the Russian, if possible, the Russian military incursions in with the mercenaries in the Sahel of West Africa and even parts of Congo, Congo and East Africa. So it is purely strategic, and they would ensure that it clearly suits their interest. They would also be, on a social level, issues of immigration. Nigerians or Africans trying to migrate to America, we find it more difficult. So we know the first Trump presidency brought a lot of restrictions for people coming in from non-Western countries, or what he called shithole countries. So people trying to get their green cards, Africans trying to get their green cards, Nigerians in particular in America, will find it more difficult because Trump basically would prefer, less immigrants coming into America.
All right.
Probably the only immigrants he would prefer is West European immigrants.
All right. Let me stay with you, Mr. Oshodi, because you've come in with the angle of interest. With a Trump presidency, what kind of approach must African leaders adopt now, more than ever, in engaging with the next U.S. administration and ensure that partnerships serve African interests?
Well, number one is trade. We need to ensure that what they want is equates to what we want also. We want fair trade. We want access to their large market, and if whatever they want from us, we ensure that it's suited in a way that it benefits our interest. We want loans, we want cheap loans, we want debt forgiveness, and if we can't get it from the Americans or the West, and then we'll look at the Chinese. And obviously, if we can't get security guarantees or security assistance, we also have the Chinese. We also have, unfortunately, we have the Russians. So we need to make sure that we think about our own interests first. Just like Trump would say, America first. We need to think about our interests first. Ironically, Trump has favored Nigeria in his first term. He unblocked the arms shipment to Nigeria. During the Obama presidency, Obama restricted Nigeria from buying arms. We could not fight Boko Haram. We could not take actions against counter-terrorism. Well, Trump made things easier. So because, again, it suits his own interests. By fighting security challenges in West Africa, it also protects the Americans and ensure that they don't have another 9/11 occurring again in their country.
All right. Mr. Abdullahi, let me pose the same question to you. With these strategies in mind, in terms of economic engagement, security cooperation, and Africa's navigation of the U.S.-China rivalry, which, many believe will give us better insights into how best to advance our own domestic and continental priorities in a rapidly changing world.
Okay. So just as like the other speaker pointed out, Africa will be on the lookout for favorable terms of trade. As you know, the liberal democracies of the West thrive on trade. So I believe that in terms of trade, it will be business as usual, because there is nothing that the American billionaires fancy like profit. But let me also say that Donald Trump is a transactional leader. So what it means is that those African countries that may pat him in the back or give him a good deal, whether officially or unofficially, will get profound, attention from him. Now, I just want to go back to the question of immigration, because as you are aware, Trump has threatened the largest deportation, of what they call undocumented migrants in the U.S. And there are over 700,000 Nigerians in the U.S. So what it means is that many of us will have to begin to, provide space for some of our brothers and sisters who Trump may deport, back to Africa. Now, other than that, a lot of family and business ties, between the Nigerian diaspora in the U.S. and many of us back in Nigeria will suffer, because you will no longer be able, to go into U.S. and out as you used to be, because there will be visa restrictions. Who knows, there could even be a renewal of the ban on Africans and Muslims, just like in Trump's first term, because as far as he's concerned, it is America first.
All right. So I want us to focus on, for the next few minutes, I want us to focus on Trump's approach to trade, favoring bilateral deals over multilateral agreements, with some saying this approach could have mixed consequences in Africa, because bilateral agreements often favor a stronger partner, meaning that African nations might struggle to secure equitable terms. However, there is African Growth and Opportunity Act, which Trump has generally supported. So if reauthorized or discontinued in 2025, what impact will this have on African economies? Mr. Abdullahi.
Well, it will have tremendous impact. Unfortunately, what we have been selling to the U.S. in large part is crude oil. And in recent years, there has been a walk back, of the amount of crude oil that U.S. buys from us, mostly because Trump is talking about energy security in the U.S. You are aware that in the state of Pennsylvania, for example, which he won with its 19 electoral votes, fracking is a very important economic activity. So as far as Trump is concerned, what they say is drill, baby, drill, drill, drill. So he has less regard, for this democratic value of, closing or not opening new oil fields. So fracking, as far as crude oil, as far as energy security is concerned, from the perspective of, crude oil production, I'm not sure Trump will look in Nigerians' way. But other non-oil commodities, I believe, will be able to sell in the U.S. and will make good money from it, because, just like you said, Trump does not so much favor group or multilateral trading, conducting multilateral trade. And so in that wise, I think that Nigeria would benefit from bilateral trade relations with the U.S. If I'm not mistaken, the balance of trade is in our favor at the moment.
All right, Mr. Oshodi, I'm sure you heard Mr. Abdullahi's submission. And while you react to that, based on empirical evidence, Nigeria has enjoyed more engagements with the U.S. under the leadership of the Democratic Party, whether it was Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and now Joe Biden. But it would seem that the Democratic Party, based their own liberal ideology, is more open to bilateral partnerships. So what does this continuity mean for Nigeria?
I think you said the Democratic Party was much closer to, our ideology. It does in the area of human rights, in the area of, racial issues. and it also in the area of, I think, cultural. Africa has been cultural, having cultural affinity with America. You see Clinton playing the saxophone. You see Obama visiting Senegal, Kenya, and Ghana. You see, but in reality, my own perspective, the Republican Party, ironically, has favored Africa, Nigeria more. Obviously, you talk about Jimmy Carter came in and started the huge trade with Nigeria on the issues of crude oil export to America. But subsequently, Clinton didn't do much. He didn't do much for Africa. He didn't intervene in Rwanda. He didn't do much for trade in Nigeria. Neither did another Democratic love story of Obama. Obama restricted our purchase of military hardware. He didn't visit Nigeria. He didn't really have much consideration with Nigeria. Obama's Power Africa initiative had very limited success. But if you now look at George W. Bush Jr., he gave tremendous amount of money to Africa, and Nigeria in particular, in the fight against AIDS. Over 600% increase in U.S. aid to Africa, fighting AIDS. It was a huge turning point in fighting the disease. George W. Bush, another same Republican, gave out the Millennium Challenge Corporation, which also provided a lot of aid to Nigeria and Africa. You now look at Trump, another Republican, helped us release the bondage and allowed us to buy military hardware to combat Boko Haram. We bought Terraco planes that could fight the insurgency in the Northeast. There was intelligence. There's a lot of military hardware assistance from the Americans. So we see that happening again, as long as it suits the American interest. So we have this ideological, similarity with the Democrats being pro-black and everything. But beyond that, it's just cultural. It's a feel-good feeling. It's not really tangible for Nigeria's interest, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, people can challenge that. I think a Trump presidency will focus again a lot on bilateral trade. Okay. And will ensure that we get favorable treatment as long as it benefits Nigeria. And also, they would want to counter Chinese intervention in Africa. Okay. The Chinese are trying to make inroads with their Belt Initiative and also with the BRICS organization. So America would want China's influence in Africa to be reduced, especially with Nigeria.
All right.